Report.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Attorney-General. Attorney, following the Minister for Education tabling the short version of Professors Smallbone and McCormick's full report of the inquiry into sexual abuse in the public school system, you released a joint media statement with Minister Courtney. In that statement you said, "We understand the public interest in this matter, and while we aim to be as transparent as possible, the government has previously received advice that there is a range of concerns and legal impediments relevant to the release of the full report." What advice did you receive that meant you couldn't release the same full redacted report that was released to the ABC under right to information the very same afternoon?
That's right.
Why would the advice you received be contrary to what the Right to Information Act enabled? Attorney, why was your reflex to evade scrutiny on the details in the full redacted report? And what advice was that based on?
Good question.
Honourable Attorney-General.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker, and I welcome the opportunity to respond to, firstly, that last unfortunate allegation. It's not a knee-jerk reaction for us to hide anything. No. What we've done all along, what we've done all along, as the Minister for Education has quite correctly identified, and of course the Premier as well in his response, is follow the absolute advice that we have received. That's right. All along. Right from when we first announced the Commission of Inquiry, we said that the work in relation to this investigation into the Department of Education would be enveloped or provided to the Commission of Inquiry, and that was done. We have done what we said we would do. Right. We've provided the report. We've provided the report to the Commission of Inquiry. It must be remembered the Commission of Inquiry works within the framework of the Commission of Inquiry Act and is so protected by that Act.
This was released under...
And we've now released the findings and the recommendations...
Order, Ms White, order.
We've now released the findings and recommendations of the report. It's impossible for the member for Franklin to listen to an answer. No. Absolutely impossible.
Addressed the question.
I'm going to address the question. This is a very serious matter. You've made serious allegations of the government, of the Minister for Education, myself and the Premier, and I'm attempting to answer the question. We acknowledge, as we've said, the public interest in the matter, and as we've said, the government has received advice that there is a range of concerns. The member knows where the government receives advice from.
Say it for
the
people who are listening.
Member knows.
Order. Member for Franklin.
The member knows that. And they know the certain parameters around the advice that government receives. It is sufficient enough for members in this place to be aware, of course, that we receive advice from legal advice. Now, it's important to note, as I said, that many people contributed to the inquiry on a confidential basis, and we acknowledge their valuable contributions to the inquiry, and we want to ensure that the rights of these individuals are protected. That's both pursuant to Section 194K of the Evidence Act and, of course, our defamation laws as well. In relation to RTIs, RTIs are again different. They're a matter for the relevant department to which that RTI is submitted. In accordance with that particular act, the department assesses and releases information at arm's length. Now, I'm aware that many RTIs go out, and what recipients do...
Order. Member for Franklin.
What recipients do with the contents of what they're provided with RTIs is a matter for them and a matter for their own legal advice.
Quite right.
Particularly journalists. And I know journalists regularly seek their own legal advice as to what they can and can't report on and what they can and can't release. The Greens chose to table the full report.
Redacted gave you the advice.
Presumably pursuant to that RTI.
Member for Franklin, that's at least half a dozen times you've interjected on the attorney. If you do it again, I'll ask you to leave.
That is a matter for the Greens, and of course they do have the protection of parliamentary privilege, but they don't when they walk outside this House. Yes. So I will conclude by saying, Mr Speaker, RTIs are a separate matter again. The government does not have the Protection of a Commission of Inquiry Act. We take advice, we took advice, we have provided the findings and recommendations, and our government's response, and the Minister for Education and the Premier have clearly identified the timeline and the process that we adopted and the extreme caution that we took necessarily in that regard, and we have been open and transparent according to the process that we needed to adopt, and we acted swiftly.